Oh, hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Thursday night, the 21st of February, 2019, as we had nature clean things up. If it didn't get washed away last night, and not a lot of it did, because one of the interesting things about what happened last night was the fact that the 32-degree line got stuck somewhere across southern Westchester County, southern Connecticut, and in New Jersey, along Route 78 or just south of Route 78. And we had this, after about 9 o'clock last night, this big area of moderate to heavy rain, which brought a lot of freezing rain across central and parts of northeastern Pennsylvania, came right through with temperatures in the upper 20s to around 30. And that put, in some places, up to half an inch of ice that accreted overnight. Of course, today we had temperatures up over 50, so a lot of that melted. The snow cover was, gone, at least where I am, and in areas just inland, except in some shaded areas where it was a bit protected. But the bottom line is, it was basically as little as a coating to an inch or so as you went from New York City north and northeast. I actually got about an inch and a half where I am in central Long Island, to as much as 2, 3, 4 inches in parts of central and South Jersey, to as much as 4, 5, 6 inches in parts of southern Pennsylvania and northern Maryland. Now all of that is going to be, as I said, it's already been eliminated in a lot of places, and if it hasn't, we've got warm air and a rain event coming, and that, by the way, is going to be caused by a major storm that is taking shape now in the southwestern part of the U.S. We don't often see big snows occur in the southwest in lower elevation areas, but that's exactly what's happening here, and we're going to take you through all of that. That system is going to become a deep storm as it heads up towards the Great Lakes over the weekend, and it's going to be the catalyst to drive a change in the upper air pattern. I think it's a temporary change. The dominant pattern that we've been in for much of this month with this roaring Pacific jet is going to relax, and it's probably going to relax for maybe about a 2-week period, and that will take us into the first 7 or 8 days of March. And I'm expecting then the ridge in the west to come back and usher in maybe an early arrival of spring, or perhaps getting spring in here on time into the Northeast. The last few years, it's been exactly the opposite. We've had these sort of extended winters that have gone on into April. Maybe this year it's going to be different. We'll see. All right, so let's get started. We're going to take a look with all the watches and warnings, and there are a ton of them up already. And the new winter storm watches are already going up as well in and around the Great Lakes, and there's probably going to be more to come. So with that, the Weather Service map for you, and there you have it. Arizona, the northern, let's say the northern half, and then let's add the southeastern part of the state all the way down to the Mexican border. Winter storm warnings in effect also for just about all of western New Mexico, except for the extreme southwest. And we have winter storm warnings in southwest Colorado, southern Utah, advisories surrounding that. Las Vegas got a half an inch of snow last night, and that is astounding. I think that might have been back-to-back nights that they got snow. I know, Scott, you told me what it was, and my 60-year-old brain has now forgotten, but needless to say, if Las Vegas is getting snow, then things are awry as far as the weather pattern is concerned. And we've got winter storm warnings up to some of the mountains in southernmost California. New winter storm watches are up through eastern, looks like eastern Colorado into Kansas, southeastern Nebraska, and then a narrow area there of winter storm watches on up through Iowa and into northwestern Wisconsin. Also up in a portion of southwestern Michigan on the lower peninsula. Flood watches are up. It seems like it's been continuous now, because the moisture is loading up again as it gets ready for the storm that's coming out of the southwest. So you've got flood watches up for southeastern Arkansas, the northern halves of Mississippi, Alabama, northwestern Georgia, the western Carolinas, southwestern Virginia, southern West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and looks like even a small portion of southeastern Missouri. So it's a loaded map tonight with respect to watches and warnings that are up, and all of this is being caused by this system that is in the southwest and what it's going to do as it moves to the east and then to the northeast. And by the way, you can expect this area of winter storm watches up in the upper Midwest to get expanded, I think, as we go through, excuse me, the next 24 hours. I think we're going to add to this. And I think also that come Saturday night and Sunday, we may see some blizzard warnings up here with this intense low going to the northeast. It's going to be a fast-moving system, so that probably will limit the amount of snow that's going to occur out of this. But nonetheless, we could have at least the criteria for a blizzard of heavy snow for several hours or more, and winds of gale force. I think we may meet that criteria in some places in the upper Midwest. So here's the snowfall forecast. Now bear in mind that a lot of the areas that you see here forecasting an additional 20 to 25 inches of snow have already gotten up to a foot and a half of snow. I looked at some live streams out of Flagstaff. They were just insane, watching the snow come down heavy, and it looked like there was every bit of a foot and a half already on the ground. It had been snowing heavily at Flagstaff for something like 15 straight hours, and then reporting snow for the last 26 or 27 hours straight, and they still have more to go. And here on the forecast, the digital forecast, another 23 inches. And then there's a 50 print. I don't know where that spot is, but there's a 50 print here in southeastern Arizona. And now you can also see the peppering of winter storm warning. We have the winter storm warnings up, and the peppering here of heavier snow amounts. Of course, all of this elevation driven. When you see it like this, it's where you got the elevated areas showing up with the big amounts. But again, even some of the lower levels are going to see some snow out of this. Just outside of Tucson, we've got a 39 print. Again, I'm not sure what that actual point is, but nonetheless, these are really impressive numbers, and they are a bit less impressive as you go further to the north into Colorado and Utah, but nonetheless, for skiers, snow is snow, and that makes them all very happy indeed. Now, this snow map, by the way, takes you out to Sunday morning, 7 a.m., so there's going to be an addition of, we're going to start these numbers are going to go up, especially on the northern end. So right now you're looking at a band of about 6 to 10 inches running up through northern Kansas and on up across Iowa, and on a diagonal there across Iowa from the southwest corner to the northeast corner, and then crossing Wisconsin, which has been just hit very hard with snow these last 5 weeks or so. Many areas here setting all-time records for the month of February, and the month still isn't done yet. And in the east, there's just basically 1 inch amounts through upstate New York and on up into parts of New England. This system is going to bring warm air all the way up once it's all said and done. There's not a whole lot of cold air ahead of it. There's plenty of cold air behind it. The satellite tonight, we're going to have the western satellite loop. We don't pull this up too often, but we have lately with that deep trough in the west. And you could see the rotation here and back into Nevada, the upper air system that is controlling all this, and the deep flow that runs down the Pacific from north to south and then just sweeps in from the west across the Baja Peninsula. And I'll bring it a little bit further south. This is a really intense moisture flow that's coming in and then being dragged up northward, back up into Arizona and New Mexico, and with that deep trough there in the west, you've got just plenty of cold air that is making it down to levels that, as I said, normally don't see snowfall. Not bad, not too shabby weather-wise in much of California, the eastern part of the state. You can, if you look closely, by the way, you can see the snow cover up the Sierra Nevadas. You see what looks like clouds here that aren't moving. You can see the clouds that are moving. Those are for real. But what's not moving there is the snow cover that exists up the Sierra Nevadas. And, of course, in the last couple of weeks, their snow has also been measured in feet. So here's the radar tonight. And I'm going to get this a fresh view. Let's get this. There we go. And oftentimes when we look in the west, the radars don't look all that impressive, and then you wonder why, where all this weather is coming from. That is impressive to see precip, that expanded area of precip in the state of Arizona. It's been raining heavily in Phoenix, and of course all of that is streaming up into the areas to the north. Flagstaff is right in the thick of it here as that moisture field just gets drawn up to the northeast, and you can see there's also still some precip back in southern Nevada, in and around Las Vegas, and then some of that is moving up into parts of southwest Utah, and we've got a lot of activity in southern California. This is really a very, very impressive upper air trough that's being kicked out to the east. This powerhouse is going to do its thing over the next couple of days. Tonight's surface map, should it care to join us, please. There we go. Hello. Hey, yippee. Look at the southern half of the U.S. The system in the southwest is basically controlling all the weather all the way across. And you've got the beginnings of the setup for Friday and the weekend. And we should point out, by the way, as I don't want to leave this out, this storm is going to produce a rather extensive severe weather outbreak this weekend, and the Storm Prediction Center already has an enhanced area of risk of severe weather. I'll pull that up in a moment, but first off, in the southwest, there's your low in southwest Utah, slowly kind of inching its way eastward. But when we look to the east, yesterday's system, here's the frontal boundary from yesterday's system. It is stalled out, and we have a very, very impressive warm sector that is setting up already. Look at the temperatures today in southern Georgia, low and middle 80s, with dew points up in the mid and upper 60s. Florida, middle to even some upper 80s popping up here with dew points up into the mid 60s to even a few low 70s dew points. And those go all the way back into southeastern Louisiana. So this warm sector that's going to be part of this whole storm and produce the severe weather outbreak is already setting up. So you've got that going on, and then you've got all this energy well to the west that still has to come eastward. It's going to pull it all together and run that low up to the northeast, where cold air is setting up across Wisconsin and through Iowa, over and through Nebraska, northern Kansas. You've got temperatures this afternoon running in the teens for highs, teens and low 20s. This is a decent amount of cold air that's going to be in place for this storm as it runs up to the northeast. Let me go back to this map. I'm sorry, where is it? This guy. I want to go to SPC and bring up the Storm Prediction Center's risk area for Saturday. Here is the risk at the moment. No organized severe thunderstorms being forecast, but there is that general area of thunderstorms, and the radars are already picking up heavy rains again in Arkansas, Tennessee, where we have all the flood watches. That Gulf moisture is already in play. For tomorrow, we have a marginal risk of severe weather in northern Louisiana, northeastern Texas, southern Arkansas, and western Mississippi. But then moving it to Saturday, and this makes total sense that it would be this large, marginal risk running all the way up through the Ohio Valley, a slight to enhanced risk from northern Louisiana, Arkansas, northeastern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, running northeastward into almost eastern Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois. And again, the enhanced risk embedded in there. I wouldn't be shocked. We're going to see some tornadoes out of this. This is really probably, I would say this is the first serious severe weather outbreak of the very, very young severe weather season that is about to get underway. When you look at the characteristic of this whole storm system and in the setup of it, it does look like something you would see deeper into the month of March. Not that it's unusual to see something like this at the end of February, but more often than not, you'd see something like this when you were a bit deeper into the month of March. The overall map tonight has that kind of March storm look to it. And we'll take you to the surface. Actually, we'll start with the upper air. Okay, let's start with the upper air since I already have it up there. And going back to Monday, let me make sure you guys can see this okay. We know what it is, folks, right? Ridge in the east, trough in the west, albeit a flat ridge there earlier this week in the east. And then the ridge kind of pops up, and of course now we're into Wednesday, and here we are at Thursday. Now watch the west coast, that trough that drops southward down through the west coast of the U.S. and into the southwest. That is what is driving everything down in the southwest. And as that trough drops down into the southwest, what happens in the east? The ridge starts to pop up. So this is warmer air that's going to be pushing northeastward up the east coast over time. Now this trough swings around, and you've got this nice looking wrapped up cutoff low that moves across New Mexico into North Texas and holds its identity as it moves northeastward up to the Great Lakes. And then you've got this arm that comes down in the north, the short wave that is running in western Canada that swings around and picks it up and kicks it on by into to the northeast. That is very important with respect to the overall scheme of things, because this storm is the catalyst really for a pattern change. There's going to be a pattern change across North America, and it is, I think, this is one of those moments sometimes when you have a large scale pattern that locks in. Oftentimes what happens is it's a primary pattern that holds for several weeks or longer. Then it takes a breather and then usually reloads. And that's what I think is happening here. We're seeing the primary pattern of the trough in the west and the ridge in the east going to be taking a breather, and that is going to kind of flip to the opposite for a short time, a relatively short time, and then my feeling is it'll probably revert back to the trough in the west, ridge in the east idea after a week to 10 days, and then we're back to that primary pattern again. That's what I'm seeing so far. But you can watch the catalyst here of that upper low just kind of lift up, and then the whole profile across North America changes. You also have rising pressures across the Arctic region and across Greenland. So you've got the upper lows are trapped to the south, and more importantly in the west, the trough is gone, and you get a bit of a ridge that pops up in the west. It's flat, but it is there, and you also have this cutoff low that cutoff high, that pushes up through the Gulf of Alaska and goes into Alaska right there. So it's got this is a colder look. The only problem is if you notice the flow as we move into next week, it is a pretty fast flow west to east along the Canadian border. It's got some cold air intrusion here. So there's a part of that jet that comes down from northern Canada around this upper low in Hudson Bay, and then that feeds in to the Great Lakes and the Northeast. But you're kind of on the edge of it, and then it's just basically a westerly flow across the U.S. And over time, the question is whether you're going to wind up getting something that's going to try and come down in that northern part of the jet and do something. Eventually, we're going to wind up going back, I think, to, as I said, the trough west, ridge east idea. But at this point now, we're at March 9th or 10th, so it would be toward the latter part of the forecast period and beyond that happens. So for you snow lovers, let me put it this way, without dealing with any specifics here, with regards to how it would happen. You're going to have this window beginning later next week and lasting through perhaps the first 7 to 10 days of March, where if something is going to happen from the standpoint of wintry weather in the Northeast, and specifically in that area in the I-95 corridor that's seen next to nothing, this is, I think, going to be your last gasp attempt. And by the way, there is no guarantee at all that just because we go into this, that we're going into this pattern change or pattern relaxation, that anything could happen. It could just very well wind up being cold fronts coming through, cold and dry, warms up ahead of a front, cold and dry. And then you wait for the pattern from the Pacific to reload, and then you start to get, precip. But then, of course, by then, there's absolutely no cold air left around because your whole upper flow has changed. So the winter is what it is. You're not going to change it now that it's almost 2/3 to 3/4 over with. All right, so let's run you through with the surface maps to see how the GFS is handling it. And the European, by the way, is pretty much in lockstep with the GFS's idea and of this deep low that comes out. You can see it here coming out of the southwest. We're now into Saturday, and of course that warm front is beginning to lift northward. So as the low intensifies, you've got this wrapped up, occluded low with the cold front that runs down into the western Gulf, and the warm sector is set up for a severe weather outbreak. The GFS actually picks up that big max area of precip in southern Indiana, southern Illinois. So that's probably somewhere in that slight risk of severe weather that we looked at. Look at the snow, by the way, as it revs up across parts of Kansas, that dark blue, heavy snow. I think this makes total sense. The gradient here is exceptionally tight. A lot of isobars there, folks. Lines of equal pressure. The gradient's really, really tight. I'll pull up a sounding right in the heart of that heavy snow band just to take a look. And the temperature at that spot is 33. The wind is 25 knots. These are sustained winds at near the surface, and not too far above the surface, you've got 50-knot winds here. So there certainly could be gusts of 40, 45, or even 50 miles an hour out of this with this wrapped up low. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, if you go to my on my YouTube channel in the instructional videos, I have 2 videos there. They're short, and they explain how to read those soundings that you could pull up on Tropical Tidbits. 979 low near Lake Superior by Sunday morning. More heavy snows for central and northwestern Wisconsin, and then on up to the upper peninsula of Michigan. And here in the east, of course, we've got rain coming in as the warm front pushes northward. Then the cold front swings eastward and moves through here sometime Sunday afternoon. There's actually 2 fronts. There's the front that's near the coast. There's actually another front that you could kind of identify back through western Pennsylvania, and it's behind that you get into the colder air. So initially, when the front goes by, it's going to have very little impact on the temperatures. I thought yesterday that there was a fair chance that the temperatures could reach up into the 60s on Sunday. I think that's still quite possible. It's just that sometimes in these instances, it really comes down to whether the warm front comes through or not. It looks like it comes through, but the problem is, at least through Sunday morning, there's a south-southeast wind, and that's going to keep temperatures down. And then you've got the winds shifting more southwesterly by early afternoon, but how much time are you going to have to take temperatures up? The south-southeast wind will probably keep readings more in the upper 40s and low 50s. And then if you turn around to the southwest and you're dealing with showers, I just wonder if you could ever really get it to much above, say, mid to upper 50s. But I won't say 60s impossible here. And then once that goes by, look how tight the gradient is with this deep low in southeastern Canada. We're going to have some strong gusty winds here in the northeast and into the mid-Atlantic states and back through the eastern Great Lakes and into Ohio, western PA, that whole area here for Sunday night into Monday afternoon. Probably going to have some pretty good wind gusts here. The winds do start to relax after that. Now, with regards to what the models are doing beyond this, we are continuing to see what is typical of each model, especially the European lately. From one run to the next, there's a snowstorm on one run, it's gone in the next. The GFS is no better. Snowstorm on one run, gone in the next. I've been jokingly suggesting how these models are basically doing the obligatory snowstorm somewhere in the Northeast on every run, only it never gets here. So the models seem to be keying on some weak energy, or at least the GFS is, some weak energy that's coming out Tuesday out of the northern plains that runs fairly quickly to the east. And you've got a surface low shown to move over northern Ohio into upstate New York that redevelops off the coast of southern New England here and brings an area of snow just north of New York City through upstate New York and through New England. It's quite possible that this could wind up being a little weaker or further south. Not too many runs ago, we had the GFS making a snowstorm along the East Coast out of this. It seems like that northern energy, and there is some southern energy here, that northern system just kind of comes along and goes out separately, and then the southern system also winds up going out well to the south and east. And as I said, you're going to run this through on every run and see something different. Cold front coming through going into the first weekend of March, and then there's some energy behind it, little overrunning here with a wave going by to the south and high pressure up into eastern Canada. This again falls into the who knows category. And by the way, if we look at the European surface through all of this, even though we can only see through 24-hour time frames, it's a cold look after the big storm. Here's the Europeans storm in 24-hour increments from Saturday morning to Sunday morning, a 975 low sitting right near Green Bay, and then that goes up into Canada. Very tight pressure gradient and strong winds in the Northeast Sunday night into Monday. The lows redeveloping over New Brunswick, high pressure coming down with cold air behind it. That spreads out going into Tuesday and Wednesday. It's hard to find, a hint here. There's probably just, a weak hint of what the GFS had for the middle of next week. Here's your southern stream low, northeast of the Bahamas. So the Europeans got, it keeps things, relatively flat, and then it tries to do something toward the end of next week with a low across the Great Lakes and some kind of redevelopment off the coast. A little low that formed, that little inverted trough here along the Carolina coast, and then that runs up to the northeast with another high behind it. I'm really kind of, I'm trying to be very agnostic about these runs. I have to tell you, just given the way the winter has been, you're going to have to really push every button correctly in order to come up with one last gasp snow event that would impact New York City and Boston. I'm going to leave Philadelphia out of it because they at least got 3 or 4 inches the other day, and they're running with snowfalls that are not that unreasonable when compared to normal. So I'm taking them out of the snow hole. The snow hole really has been from central New Jersey on up to about Boston to just south of Portland, right in there, Portland, Maine. Go 75 miles north and west of there, and if you're a snow lover, you really don't have too much to complain about. Every year there's a snow hole, and this year it's picked the area that over the past number of years has done really, really well when it comes to snow. So, on that note, let me come to the chat board and give a big hello to everybody. Christopher Alley, nice to see you here. Oh, Greenfire's on. I haven't seen Greenfire in a while. Good to see you here, sir. And we've got Frank Toko 4. Welcome aboard. 420 Scraping. Nice. Jason Barry and Cynthia Gwyn-Yaudis. Everything turned out okay with all that freezing rain. And yes, I think you could probably make an argument that there could be a little bit of freezing rain or freezing drizzle at the start of the precip Saturday night in the inland areas there, central PA, upstate New York. But you know what? It lasts for a half an hour, and then it goes over to rain anyway. So it's completely different from what the setup that we just had. And by the way, if you look at the looking back at the system from yesterday, how much it rhymed with the one from a week ago, right down to the fact that the warm air never made it much further north than the immediate coast. We actually had, I think, a bit warmer air was able to penetrate further north on the system from last Tuesday because you had a much deeper storm that went over into the Great Lakes. This time around, you had a much flatter looking setup here, and I think that kept made the cold air a bit stronger and prevented the warmer air from becoming important and pushing the freezing line further to the north. But that and the snow amounts were much more bullish to the south this time around than in the last event. But even in the last event, there was some snow the day before that left a few inches. It just took a little longer for that to come out. It really did evolve in almost the same way. It's remarkable, but when you look at it seems remarkable, and yet when you look back at every winter in these signature patterns, you notice that the systems that impact you have a similarity to them. As I've said many times, they rhyme, and that's what we're seeing. And with that in mind, you have to wonder whether, with the pattern that we're kind of flipping to, whether we go back to what we were seeing back in November and early December, where you wind up seeing these weak systems going by more to the south. That's the other thing, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, that area, down into western and southwestern Virginia, have done very well snow-wise this winter. You wonder whether the models are not really keen on the fact that maybe if there's going to be these systems coming out later next week and going into the first week or so of the month of March, that they might just as well come out the same way that they've have up until now. So just bear that in mind. These overdeveloped looks that the models have with storms off the East Coast, particularly the parallel GFS, which is going to become operational on the 20th. By the way, there have been a number of stories lately about the uproar among folks in the weather community because of the parallel GFS, and really how awful it's been, because it has. It's made all these storms off the East Coast in its long range, and it didn't stop today. Just running the parallel now, I'll bring it back up full screen, and 99 Wolves, by the way, good to see you. I was wondering what's happened to you, because I hadn't seen you in a while. But I did send you a message on Facebook to see how you were doing. Here's the parallel GFS. There's the system for the middle of next week. So it's got more of a weak low further north. Same idea though. That goes out. The southern system goes out, totally unfazed and goodbye. And then as we head into the longer range, here we are at day 10, doing it again. Okay, doing it again. The umpteenth time that this model has done this since it's come to view. Broken clocks might be right twice a day, but even this broken clock isn't right twice a day, and on it goes. So, look, the bottom line is that window is going to be there. To waste energy and emotion on each model run beyond 120 hours is just that. Wait till we get wait till we get at least inside the 5-day time frame to start pinning down what, if anything, is going to happen. And as I said before, there's nothing that says that it could just wind up being, a cold and dry pattern with weak weather systems moving along, and that's it. Scott Briller, yep, Central Park's in double digits, over 10 inches after the inch and small change yesterday. There's probably a little bit of time for it to pick up a bit more from the standpoint of snow if something were to come out in the next 2 weeks, because I really think after that we're going to see spring coming in on time. If we go back to that Pacific pattern that we're in now, we're going to have an active severe storm season, and we're going to see spring coming into the east on time for a change, as opposed to the last number of years where we've been seeing this extension of the winter season into the month of April. Maybe this year it won't happen. We'll see. All right, folks, calling it a night at this point, kind of, taking it down a tad after. Anytime there's a snow event, I need to take a bit of a mental break. So I sort of did that today. Posts were a little fewer than usual, but they were still there. And you could read more about this long-range post if you go either to my website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, or if you haven't already done so, download my free weather app on Google Play or on the App Store. My focus, of course, is eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, but you can pull up your local weather conditions and weather service forecast for your area, and there's a great feature, Zoom Radar, which you could take to anywhere in the United States, and you could see the precip as precip type, rain, sleet, or snow. And it's a really good, nice tool. It's a really good tool, and you can even add. There's a menu on the side, and you can add certain features to it while you have the radar up, including storm reports, watches and warnings, and current temperatures and wind. There's a little thermometer icon there. Just click on that, and it'll plot all the current temperatures for wherever you have the geography set. So the link is up there. Peter Bicker, how do you know we are going back to the Pacific pattern when you just said you can't predict 5 days out? No, I didn't say that I couldn't predict 5 days out. What I said is, in terms of the specifics of what the model is doing, it's silly to go beyond 5 days, especially the way the models are behaving. However, I stand by what I said, which is in terms of the large-scale pattern, you're going to have this relaxation that's going to last for about, let's say, 10 days to 2 weeks. And then I believe you're going to see the Pacific jet come back with a vengeance, and that primary pattern restore itself. Okay? You can't be contrary to everything. You get mad at me if I support the models. You get mad at me if I don't support the models. So you got to cut me some slack here, all right? Listen to what I'm saying. And so far, by the way, if you go back to everything that's gone on in the last couple of months, I haven't really been that far off, all right? I haven't been perfect, but I haven't been that far off. So again, in terms of the specifics of what the model spits out, lows, highs, big storms in one run, not there in the next, okay? That you can't really rely on in terms of what the models are do from run to run. But relaxation in the primary pattern, which is the Pacific jet is in control, that relaxation lasts about 10 days to maybe 2 weeks. Inside that 10 days to 2 weeks, it's probable that there will be at least one opportunity for something to happen. How that opportunity evolves, I don't know. Okay, but after that runs its course, I think the Pacific pattern comes back, and let's see 2 weeks from now whether that's the case. Okay, hold me to the forecast. Don't say the forecast is wrong before the time frame that you're forecasting for is actually taking place. I always love that when people do that. You know, you put out a forecast. If you put out a forecast or an idea for something, say 5 or 6 days from now, they tell you you're wrong, even though that 5 or 6 day period hasn't even passed yet. No, after it's passed, you can come back and say you were right or you were wrong, but not before. Okay, so again, try to step away from the emotional. All of you really should do this. Step away from the emotional roller coasters that each model run take you on, and try and get a sense of what the overall pattern is. If you do that way, you will then start to figure out where you think systems are going to go, and the models will come to you. That's the key for a forecaster. You want the models to come to your idea of what you think is going to happen, not the other way around. All right? Then all you're really doing is just looking at maps and just blindly going where those maps take you. You got to have an understanding, a general understanding of what the overall pattern is. And once you have an understanding of what the overall primary pattern is, then you'll see that how the storms evolve will come to your thinking and not the other way around. And by the way, let me point out that through all of the month of February, and particularly in the last week or two, all I have heard about has been, aside from pattern change and blocking the MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, and all the rest of it, what people seem to be missing is the fact that all these things that might normally work to change a pattern to something more favorable for snow in the I-95 corridor, they're not working this year. They're not teleconnecting. The MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, apparently has been, and I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it, by the way, apparently has been in a favorable phase for the East, for the coastal areas of the East. But for whatever reason, it's not teleconnecting with that Pacific jet and the El Nino and creating some sort of, feedback change down the loop of the whole Pacific jet pattern. And it's as if all these things seem to be running in their own separate entities, and they're not hooking up to create a wholesale change. Now, the storm in the southwest is driving the change across North America. You still, by the way, have problems in the Atlantic with the fact that there's not a whole lot out there going on to kind of force storms to come up the East Coast. That continues. So, I just don't see... I don't see this relaxation lasting more than 10 days or 2 weeks. So you know what? 10 days or 2 weeks from now, let's see where we are. Maybe I'm wrong. I wouldn't be the first time. And if I am, I'll admit it. So we'll leave it at that before we just go on and on. Okay? We're running out of time for you winter folks. Just remember that. It is February 21st. And you still, you still have to get the pattern to flip a little bit in order to get to something favorable, and even then, no guarantees that it will happen. The teleconnections, well, it's not that they've been wrong, Izzy. I would say that the way that people are looking at them are wrong, because they all seem to be kind of operating in their own little worlds, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, where they kind of tell it, where they connect, where the impact of something going on in one place has an impact on something that in the other. And by the way, just speaking of the teleconnections, as far as quote-unquote blocking is concerned, which everybody seems to always make a big deal out of, and it's vastly overstated and seldom occurs, is the fact that the NAO is actually negative right now and going positive. So what is the negative NAO getting for you at the moment? Nothing, because it's the wrong kind of negative NAO. It's in a geographically unfavorable place. The NAO is a big geographic area. Same for the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, which, by the way, is going to be spiking rapidly to the neutral line, which is why you're having that big spike, is coinciding with this big storm that's going where? To the Great Lakes, okay, where they've all been going. So it's going to be hard to change that rhyming pattern that we've seen. All right, folks. So we'll leave it here at that after all that ranting. Remember, download the weather app for your enjoyment and your convenience. And also, if you are really into weather, because Peter Bicker is actually part of my Patreon platform. So he's learning every day with respect to what models do and what they don't do. So if you'd like to be part of that, that is my paid platform, but it's the price of a cup of coffee. I am cheaper than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or as I often call them, $4. It's $2 a month, and you get extra live streams, extra posts, all kinds of different things that I'm not putting on Facebook and I'm not putting on my website. And also you can message me at any time, and I will respond to you in a timely fashion. And I should mention, too, if you need weather for professional reasons, you can get in touch with me and join the Patreon platform, and you get extra stuff and extra hand-holding. And the link is up there on the chat right now. It's also on the descriptor to this live stream and the descriptor to this video. And I haven't mentioned this for a long time, but if you use the Amazon link on the descriptor to this live stream and video, we are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated site. So if you use that link and shop on Amazon, you get your stuff, and out of Amazon's pocket, they throw me a few cigars, and I'm a very happy camper. So it's an easy way to support my channel. If you're going to shop on Amazon anyway, go ahead and do it on my link, and you just search from there. You don't have to buy what's on the page. You can just go ahead and use the search box and find what you need and go for it. And thank you for those of you, by the way, who have done that, who have downloaded the app, and who have joined my my Patreon platform. So have a great night. Izzy D, thanks for hitting Super Chat yesterday and today, and also thanks to Brandon Doherty, who also hit Super Chat yesterday, and I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you for the endorsement, Phil P. I really appreciate it. Scott Briller, Izzy D, and a whole bunch of you that are on tonight, that are on the Patreon platform. I'm really glad that that's worked out well. I got a few other ideas of things I want to do going forward, and I'll let you know about it once I figure out how to execute them. Have a great evening, everybody. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight, 9:25 on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee.